Okay, so your favorite subject to teach are math and history. We talked about that. So I would like to know a little bit more just about you, kind of outside of the classroom. Like, what are some interests or hobbies that you might have that you enjoy, just like for you to kind of have some personal care for yourself?
I'm a really big reader. I really like to read Stephen King novels are my favorite. So anytime I'm not reading something academically, that's what I'm reading. And I play in a lot of leagues, like in college I did intramurals and different things. I like to be active and move around, play sports, just kind of go do my own thing. The only time I like to be like sitting still would be whenever I'm reading.
Yeah.
But besides that, I'm a pretty chill person. I don't need to do anything crazy. I just like kind of focusing on the things I like and having fun. So
What are like your top three favorite Stephen King novels that you've read?
The Shining, It, and The Institute.
Okay.
So I've read all of those books over 4 times each.
Wow.
I really enjoy them. I like the way that he writes his novels. It takes a while to get into it, but they're just so intriguing, and they're a lot scarier than the book or than the movies, which I like too. But
So you've seen, did they make a movie about the Institute?
not yet. So that book just
Oh,
came
I think,
out.
are they? Are they
They're
going
going
to?
to.
Okay.
He just released that book last year, so it's a newer book. And then I've probably read over 20 of his books
Oh,
so
wow.
far. They are really my favorite.
So do you
thing.
think the book is scarier than like the actual Shining movie?
Yes, because it's left up to your imagination. You can only do so much
Mhm.
on a screen, on a film with people. But whenever you're reading it, you're creating it in your own head. So
Yeah, yeah.
I think it's way scarier than the movie.
Well, I think that's good. Do you ever bring that up sometimes, like reading or whatever in the
Mhm.
classroom, just to kind of relate to some of your kids? Because we have a lot of smart kids that read, like they'll be reading all kinds
Right.
of books above their level.
Yeah, and I think it's important for them to know that like their math teacher also reads. Like I tell them, I'm like, hey,
Mhm.
I like to read outside of school. Like I was always a reader, because most of the time they're complaining about some book they have to read or something like that.
Yeah.
And I'm like, if you find what you enjoy, like you can go so far with reading. It'll take you so many places. And so I think it's good for them to see that even I'm done with school, I'm a teacher, I'm moving on, I'm still reading.
Mhm.
And it also kind of gives me a talking point with some of them that really like to read, because they're like, oh, well, what do you read? And this is what I like. So it's also
Yeah.
good for building relationships.
No, absolutely. I agree with that totally. Okay. So, sometimes when you're teaching, there may be other, activities or clubs or duties or things that we might need help with. And of course, that's not necessarily the case this year because a lot of things are not like they normally are because of the pandemic and everything, which is a shame. But, what activities would you consider like coaching? I mean, I know we already are looking at the coaching position. We've already kind of talked about that. But what would you consider coaching and or advising, as part like of the teaching staff?
So at my last school, I really wanted to get involved with UIL
Okay.
events. There were a couple like calculator skills, mental math, different things like that.
Okay.
And I did that going through school, and I really liked it. And I also think that I would like to do that because there would be kids that truly like math the way I like math. And so I just think it'd be really fun. And it also gets the kids, excited to go do something with UIL. For, the kids that aren't athletes or don't do band or choir, they can
Right.
still be a part of something bigger by going and doing a UIL event. So that is probably one of the top main things I would like to be a part of.
Okay, no, that makes total sense. Excuse me. So coaching experiences, I think we talked a little bit about how you've handled both negative and positive situations. Have there ever been a situation, and how did you handle it? Maybe working with a coaching colleague, or maybe doing some things with high school coaches that maybe there was some tension there. I mean, how would you handle those relationships as far as working maybe with a coach that you don't have the same philosophies? How would you kind of work with that coach to try to still do what you do as a coach with your athletes, but still trying to go along with what the coaching staff that other coach is doing, or maybe one or two coaches are trying to implement?
So I think it would be, one, really important to pick my battles, you know, if it's
Okay.
over something small, just don't,
Mm-hmm.
not everything has to be my way. So just kind of pick and choose, but if it's something that I feel very passionate about, I think that it would be important to tell them why maybe I'm so passionate about doing it this way,
Okay,
and tell them my thinking, my rationale, and hopefully open up a channel of communication where they're like, okay, she knows what she's talking about, this is what she thinks.
right,
Because I also feel like there have been some instances where some coaches maybe get thrown into a situation that they have no idea.
mm-hmm,
And I know probably veteran coaches struggle with that because they're like, this is how we've been doing it, it's
Right.
successful. So sometimes it's hard to take in new ideas. But I think if I could back it up and tell them why I want to
Mhm.
do something like that, I think it would work really well. But the main thing would be being respectful about it.
okay,
Not to tell them, well, your way's wrong, I'm gonna do it my way anyways, because that's just gonna cause conflict and it's never gonna work. So
right,
picking and choosing, but also trying to get them to work together with me.
okay. No, I think that's important. I mean, because you do, I mean, I think a lot of times people that are in coaching already have similar personalities. I mean, they're gonna be competitive, they're gonna be driven, they're gonna be motivated. But, you know, every now and then, and I've had this experience too, in the past, coaching with coaches that really probably shouldn't be coaching, that are, you know, lazy, not doing their part,
Right.
leave it up. Maybe there's 4 coaches and only 2 are doing all the work and the others are taking off and going
Mhm.
and doing, and the kids know it.
Right.
You know, they're smart enough to know, just like a teacher, but just like a coach, hey, they're not here for me.
Mhm.
And that is not gonna get that athlete to become more successful. Now, it will with the coaches if they get to be coached by the ones that are there for the right reasons.
Mhm.
But, you know, it's really hard to be in that position. That's why I asked you that question, because not that that is a situation here, but I just know that, you know, wherever you go in the future, if you stay here, if there's new people that come along, that might be something that happens. And of course, we don't want that. We
Mhm.
want people to do their fair share. We want coaches and teachers to be here for the right reasons.
Mhm.
We want them to be here because they love kids and they want to help kids get better
Right.
and achieve goals and do things that they didn't even think they were capable of.
Mhm.
You know, we want to be believers in the kids. And of course, it's hard to do that with some of them. But it's definitely harder to do it if you have a team, you know, either academically or you have a coaching staff where half of the people, you know, aren't there for the right reasons. And so, you know, like I said, I don't think that's the case here.
Mhm.
But I do like to ask that question because I know just from experience that that has happened to me, and it was very difficult. You know, you still have to do you, you know, in that situation, because that's who you are and that's the most comfortable place to be, and you know you are there for the right reasons. But it can be a difficult spot, so I don't think you'll run into that here.
Awesome.
I don't think you'll run into that here.
Perfect.
So let's start with, how do you first motivate your athletes? And then, how do you motivate learners? What are some strategies that you would use?
For my athletes, what I like to do is I like to give them, we come up with 2 goals. One is personal, one is as a team. So, you know, our team goal could be, we want to win X amount of games this season,
Mhm.
or we want to do this, we want to do that. But then each athlete has to come up with their own personal goal, and then check in at the beginning of the year, see where we're at, and then at the end of the season, check in, see, did we reach that goal? And if we did, it's great, now how are we gonna push ourselves further? And if we didn't, it's okay, well, what can we do now to get us closer to it? Why did we not hit it? How can we get there? And I've always told my athletes, if you have your own personal goal to get better, the team will get better as a whole, if everybody does it. Because if each person is getting better, then together we're gonna get better, we're gonna, you know, be more in sync and move forward, rather than if you have 2 people that are trying to get better and the rest of the team thinks that they're fine where they're at. And then with learners, I always try to tell them, you know, this is gonna impact your future. Like, yes, you may be in middle school right now, but I'm like, do you really wanna look back and you don't get into your college that you wanted because you didn't take math seriously? Or, you know, you're not gonna get the
Mhm.
job you wanted maybe because you don't know how to do this calculation because one day you retired. And I said, everything we do, I promise, has a purpose. Like, you need it at some point in your life. And I think bringing that in for some students is really helpful,
Mhm.
especially I had one kid, he would always tell me that he just wanted to be a rapper. That's all he wanted to do, he just wanted to be a rapper. I was like, okay, that's awesome. I said, so, you know, how much does it cost to be in a studio? And he said, well,
I know that's a lot.
he goes, I don't know. And I said, well, how much is it gonna cost to have an agent to record, to do all of this? And he goes, I don't know, like, I don't know how to go figure that out. And I said, well, let's do it. And so I took him through like the math process, the steps, and that really helped him, and it motivated him to know, you know, how much money does he wanna make, how much money can he afford to spend? And so he went from there and he took off with it, and he was more invested in math after that point. He truly wanted to learn how things work, so.
Well, I mean, think about it, you gotta use some of the examples of some of these, musicians and even actors, singers that have had managers that have taken money, like when they've signed a contract and they didn't have it looked over.
Exactly.
You know, just things like that, that they were like, they lost out on money, even back in the day. Like, I think that happened to Chicago, I think it happened, I don't know if it happened, I think it happened to the Beach Boys too. I think some, you know, I've watched documentaries on that, but, yeah, that's relatable to kids.
Mhm.
I mean, that's in their zone, that's what they wanna do, and to find opportunities to provide examples to them that, about things that they're interested in
Mhm.
outside of school and later on, to kind of get them interested in doing better in the classroom is like really great. I
Right.
think that's really awesome. What is your greatest challenge, of course, we all have challenges right now, during the changes in instruction during COVID-19?
I would think the biggest challenge for virtual learning is not being able to physically be right next to the
Yeah.
student as they're working, especially
Mhm.
with math. You know, they could have something
Oh, yeah.
set up perfectly, they know exactly what they're doing, but they could miscalculate at one step, they could get one number wrong, and it's gonna mess up the rest of the problem. And during virtual learning, it's really hard to pinpoint that exact part because I'm not with them. They're,
Mhm.
you know, they're at home, they're doing it. A lot of times they don't submit their work with their assignments, so I don't know where they're messing up. And it also just really affects, you know, their relationships. If you can't build a relationship with a virtual learner, they're not gonna want to do your work because to them it doesn't matter. You know, you're just somebody on the other side of a screen telling them to do all of this stuff. So it definitely, I think, has been a challenge to not be right next to a student and one, make sure they're doing it, and then two,
Mhm.
make sure they're doing it right.
Yeah, no, I agree with you. I think we all agree that, I think the results and studies and things that people have looked at across the board, that, you know, face-to-face learning is so much more beneficial, that kids
Mhm.
learn so much better. And I think teachers teach, I mean, like, we didn't get into this to teach on a computer all day,
Right.
you know? And that's just that is one of the hard things about it. What is your greatest success so far as an educator in your mind? And what do you hope to, like, to build on that success? What would you
My
do?
greatest success would be with this one boy I had last year. He thought he was awful in school. He didn't
Mhm.
ever want to try. He would always tell me, I'm, you know, dropping out at this point anyways, it doesn't matter. And I kept pushing him, and he completed his test by himself, and he brought it to me, and he passed. It was probably the first thing he had passed all year.
Mhm.
And so I graded it really quick, I gave it back to him, I showed him his score, and he, probably for the first time ever, he just smiled. He was just so happy. And he told me at the end of the year, he was like, if you wouldn't have pushed me, he's like, I wouldn't have passed. And he goes, well, I may not pass the year, he's like, I passed that test. And he goes, so I know that if I have people that believe in me and truly care, he's like,
Mhm.
I'm gonna go be successful. And I helped him get into a kind of like a mechanical program,
Uh-huh.
where he can work with his hands in high
Yeah.
school. So back in Lubbock right now in high school, he's doing this program where he's learning how to replace a battery, you know, work with his hands, fix cars, do all of this
Oh, yeah.
mechanic work.
Mhm.
'Cause that's what he said he really wanted to do. And that was something he didn't even know was an option until he came through my class and we found that program for him. So that was really one of the best things, I think.
So building on that success story, what do you think you could do here that you could make our students and our athletes successful?
I think that I could show them, one, a different way of going about things, but also kind of just express to them, you know, it's more than math. Like, I'm here with you for for your life. I want to show you what you can do outside of my class. Like, you're a pass or fail in my class, doesn't define you. It's what you're gonna do